I like to mention that so that's not some shock later, but it's way down the road. You guys have a long time before you're totally doing sales. Okay. All right. So I want to get that kind of cleaning items out there. So these questions that we ask, that I'll ask you to bring this sheet when I'm pitching, so you kind of understand. But each one of them lets us know things about the prospect. So, I think a lot of our clients, when they go into sales, like we had a graphic designer years ago that was taking our whole portfolio. Look at all the beautiful work I do, right? Well, if they're only doing banners and you've got postcards and brochures, they're going, yeah, well, that's cool, but you don't do what we do, right? You're not asking enough up front. So even though our presentations honestly don't change that much, this is all vital information. Okay, so this is yours. All the stuff's yours. Feel free to take notes on it. Okay. So the number of years in business, I think you should pop on their website and try to find that before you get on the phone with them. I don't recommend a ton of research. I mean, you should do as I say, not as I do, probably. But you guys know my schedule. I have 30 seconds to look before a presentation. You know what I mean? But honestly, I look at their services and I look at their about section, because their about section usually says how long in business, and their services will let you know, like, if they also do emergency clean or construction cleanup or carpets, tile, on their service listing, you'll see, all the things they do. So everyone likes to think you did a lot of research, but if you drop just a couple sentences, like, I can see you've been in business since 1988. Oh my gosh, congratulations. They think you've read every word on their website. So it's a nice little way to just drop one sentence and know. I do always say something positive at that juncture. So if they've been in business since 1988, even if it's not the owner, I say congratulations, that's a big deal. That's awesome. It speaks a lot for your company. If they say, I've only been in business 4 years, like right now, I say, wow, well, you started an interesting time, aren't you brave, right? And you're still here after 2020. That's a big deal. A lot of people aren't, which is another nice thing to say, right? I try to, no matter what I try to slip in something nice at that juncture, okay? How many sales reps do you have? And I should probably revamp some of these questions now that I'm thinking about it. But, you might get a gist before, even from the first couple sentences, that they do it all. What you don't want to do is ask a business owner how many sales reps you have, and they go, yeah, it's just me, because it makes them feel small, right? So I'll usually phrase that if I don't know. So are you the main sales rep, or do you have feet on the street? And I wonder where this is. I should just change this as we go. Well, maybe not, but so I'll change this one. Do you know where she keeps these, Donna? I want to say client folders. Really, Donna? Maybe not. Yeah, this is the things needed. It's my stuff. Okay, well, I'll try to look at that one. So I usually say, so then that lets you know a lot of things, right? If they have multiple sales reps, they can be multiple states. It opens up talking points later when we're talking about calling their clients. We can say if you ever lose a sales rep, we can call so you have the time to call their account, so you have the time to leisurely hire somebody. But if it's just them, you don't say that. So as I'm saying, each one of these questions leads us to things to say in the presentation. All right, so so how many sales reps? What is your territory? I usually say, what is your territory? How far out do you go? And I just make notes on what they say. Again, this lets us know a little bit, if they go out into outer areas or, other things. I don't use that a lot in the upcoming conversation. I like to know it, right? How many days per week will you take minimum? So I kind of start this one because they're like, well, what do you mean? I'll say in regard to, how often your building's cleaned, how many days per week minimum do you take? Do you go down to 1 day a week cleans? Do you only want 5 day a week cleans? So almost all of them will say, I really want the 5s. We'll take the 3s. And then I put 3 times. Or 3 times really wants 5s. Or if some of them, I just had someone yesterday goes, oh yeah, we go down to once every other week. Okay. Okay, so so that question lets us know a lot of things. The more established companies, this was the guy who was in business 40 years. They're taking anything they can get, right? But the more established companies, they got to get staff, and it's hard to get staff to work one day, right? You have to make this pish posh match schedule where where if they have 10 companies that are all 5 days a week, it's much easier to hire people and schedule. So they almost all grow into only wanting 5-day weeklies. But I ask the questions because again, it's indicative of it lets us know things about the company.
Are you still recording?
Yeah, I think so. I want to be. Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. So yeah. Okay, so how many days per week do you take minimum? Is another thing. How are you? And I always say this too. How are you getting new business now? I say what's making people come through the door? Now, I've thought about getting rid of some of these questions at the bottom because they kind of answer it up there. Another thing to say is, how are you getting business now? Do you have any centralized company things? Or like if they have 3 reps, or does each rep do their own thing? Like if they have multiple reps, then it's a little bit different question, right? Like do you do any central email, direct mail? Are you doing it, or does each rep just kind of out on their own, getting business however they can? They're taking donuts to whoever they want to or whatever. So, what's making people, how are you getting new business now? And that's the key word you're looking for. Because if they say, well, we do a monthly email, ding, 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 we provide emails, right? We do a mailing twice a year, ding, 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 we provide contact names, right? So this is all things we can speak to later because if they're doing those strategies, then we can beef up all of those things. So how are you getting business now? If they say nothing really, it's up to each rep, then, I usually say, well, they're going to love us because they're going to get these set appointments then, and, so it'll be awesome. So I never down them for doing nothing. They're always on the defensive, like, it's just me, we don't do anything. And, if they get like that, then we're not doing our job of making it sound okay. You know what I mean? Like, like right now when it's just me, I'm like, I feel ya. I'm the owner, I'm doing all the sales too, knuckle bump. I was yesterday, knuckle bump, brother, I understand what you're going through. Now, again, you guys can't say that part if it's the owner, you know what I mean? But if they're saying, yeah, I'm doing it all myself, well, we're gonna make it so much easier for you. I can't wait. Yeah, every sentence you say, I'm so excited to tell you all that we can do, right? So, again, we do have a tendency to have a smaller company sound bigger because of us. Now they've got a whole department for inside sales. That's what it sounds like. You know what I mean? So we help beef up the perception in their marketplace of the size of their company. So all that on how you get new business. So these are all things that I listen for. These questions are very pointed, so we understand what they need. Are you a member of any industry group, buying groups, or associations? If you guys are calling out a BSC, if you're calling janitorial, I wouldn't ask that. That's the question I added to let me know what shows I need to be at. So, I don't think there are other janitorial shows we're not hitting. So, you know what I mean? You can probably skip it with the janitorial. In printing, it's a big deal. I just found out about another vending show. That's another whole company we're not in. Promotional has PPAI. That's a whole new show we've never done. So when I hear that, when I'm pitching promotional companies, I'll ask them, where are you going for your trade shows? Is there a group you belong to or a trade show you go to? And again, sometimes we have special deals, but more importantly, it's where we should be. We're pitching this person. That's the show we need to be at. The next one is there. I usually don't do. I don't know why I don't mention the new territory. You certainly could, but I usually say, obviously you could sell to any building that fits. That has people in it and gets clean. But are there any verticals you like over others? Do you like schools more than manufacturing, or do you just want a little bit of everything? Because I don't down them if they haven't defined it either. We like cast and a white net, right? I mean, so that's what I say. Do you like schools over industrial, or just a little bit of everything? And if you want to throw in, or if they get chatty, is there a new territory you want to break into? I don't know if you guys have done much work with the territories, but the pitch for that is if you're in St. Louis and you want to sell to Columbia, Missouri, what we can do is you let us know 2 weeks out what day you're going to be in Columbia, way before you get an office there, and we can start setting up a day or two of appointments So that way you can take over the territory bit by bit. So we can really organize that for you. We can help you to take over the next area without having an office there. So that's why we kind of want to ask that. We can really help them expand into other areas.
Kind of like Office Brian, I think it was Denver, because if we had specific dates, because she lived down in Texas or something like that. She had
Yep.
specific dates that she was going up there.
Exactly right. Okay, so the next one I'm very cautious about. ACT is a CRM, as is Salesforce and Zoho. They're under the category of like client retention management software or something. It's a very, the acronym CRM is very well known to most in the business world, except every client we work with. So, the fact that they just go on an appointment and don't write it down anywhere, I don't know how they do it. So, ACT is supposed to be a sales tool for the sales rep, right? So, I like the way I use it. We use it for prospecting, but basically, I have reminders in the Rainmaker. I can go back to my proposals. I know when to call them. I can send emails out of there directly. I can, you know what I mean? So it is really for an organization to organize this data. Like, I don't know how they remember it if someone says, oh, I'm under contract, call me in 2 months. No idea how our clients. If they don't sell them on the first time, most of them don't even go back, which is mortifying, right?
Right, because if you just touch it, you need to retouch it.
Correct.
Retouch.
Correct. So they don't, and they have no organizational tool to help them. So they'll say, oh yeah, we have QuickBooks. Okay, that's what you invoice out of. Or, or we use Outlook. Okay, I mean, I guess you just keep putting it on your calendar or spreadsheets. So again, I don't want to make the owner feel stupid. So what I say is, how do you organize data? Do you use spreadsheets, file folders? I break it back down, file folders. File folders, spreadsheets, or do you have some type of computer program? Now, I don't even say for prospects, because the fact that they're even tracking anything is going to be so rare. But if they come back with something like Salesforce or Zoho or HubSpot, that's good. That means they at least have a product, and that there might be some follow-up on what we do. But it's good to know, because ones that have Salesforce or HubSpot or Zoho, they could want us to work out of their database. It's a plus for them if we do that, but of course we don't really like it. Right, we really don't. But if I were them, I'd want to have all the data in one place. You know what I mean? Like if they stop us, their sales rep can have all their everything. You know what I mean? So they have one that they're using. We really should be. But if not, then later in the pitch is when we're going to talk about, I'll get a digital database. Since you don't have one, we'll have it all organized with, all this stuff. So, again, if they have nothing, later we bring that up in the presentation. I'd never ask number one sales challenge. Sorry, it seems too cheesy. I should take it off. That's a Damon question, right? Never ask that. Nor do I ever ask. I do ask. Now, if they've been in business a long time, if they've only been in business a few years, they don't have very many dormant or inactive accounts. In printing, inactives are much more important, as is this promotional, because they have, or supplies, they have 50, they have 500 house accounts that bought one case of paper and never anything else. So their inactive lists are huge. In janitorial, if they've been in business since 1988, it's good to say at that point again, you've been in business a long time. Do you ever call through your inactive accounts, your dormants, let them know your new services and stuff? That's a good list. I don't say it until they say either. If they say, no, we never do it, or we've kept all the people we want, we fire our clients, so we don't really want them back, or any of those questions, we just kind of move on. If they say, no, I know I should do that, it's probably a good list to work, we can always say it's a great list for us to work too. We can at least clean it up, get the right names, all that. Have you outsourced your cold calling in the past? That is a huge question. So if you're talking to a sales manager and he's only been at this janitorial company for 2 years, I say, have you ever outsourced your cold calling in this or a previous endeavor? Any experience with outsourced prospecting? And if they say yes, then I ask, what did you like and what did you wish were different? I don't say what did you like and what did you not like. It just makes they feel uncomfortable saying negativity, right? So I say everything about what we do is spin, right? It's very little word changes that have a huge impact, right? We want to leave them feeling good about themselves and the strategies they're currently using, and just saying we can even take you further. We don't want to say, you're not doing emails, you're not doing direct mail, you're the only sales rep, you're that, you know what I mean? It can come off like that with just little tweaks. If we do it wrong, it can come off sounding exactly like that. So, what did you like about it, and what did you wish were different? And this is a great thing, because this is what, if they answer it and they become a client, it's what we have to, make sure to sell against. So if they said, yeah, we kept getting in buildings that didn't fit us, that either, we're only clean 1 day a week and all we wanted was 5, I'm like, I'll commiserate then. Yeah, you can't be wasting time like that. I totally get it. Things like that. And then later when I'm making the script, I'll say, listen, well, we should say, listen, hey, this client only wants ones that fit in. Or we added that D column, right? Smaller, but we'll let them have right of last refusal. But we play to that later. How was their experience? Oh, we loved it. They just went out of business. Great, I get it. Or yeah, it was bad. Companies like ours, in large part, don't share the list with them.
That's a big selling point for us.
Well, oh yeah, the fact that we give it to them for, it's $1,000 value add. Those things cost expensive, so it's very nice. But what's interesting is they'll say, well, we told them we only wanted 5 days a week, and we were getting every 7-Eleven on the planet. We don't know what they pulled on that list. And they'll ask, do we get to see your list? You'll see it, known it. So, and half the reason for us too is that we're putting that back on them to review their list, right? Good appointments all start with the good list. So if they go through and they say, if we make appointments and, I'll give you an example. I had one client say they want banks, okay? And so we have looked at banks, we were dialing blanks, and we got them into a 7-Eleven. And he's like, how the hell did you get us into a 7-Eleven? Well, we looked at the SIC code, it was listed as an ATM location. Now, we put in banks. We do not eyeball all 3,000 numbers. We give it to them to eyeball all 3,000 numbers. If you go through and see 7, if you don't go through it, we can apologize and say we'll take all those out of there, but, later on, it can easily come up with, well, we gave you your list, right, to yay or nay. They have this impression that the dialers know what they want and will not call the ones that don't fit. That everybody's memorized everything on the list that they want, which could be 50 different categories, and we're only going to call those. It's impossible. So, down the road, they'll have some responsibility on if the appointments fit. But we solve that. We send them the list criteria, and then we also send them the list. So, if they say, hey, you only pulled manufacturers starting at 100, I see on the criteria, I wanted them to start at 250. Well, perfect. We sent you the criteria, the misunderstanding, we'll take them out of there. Versus they look at nothing, and we get them in a building with 100 people in their van.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we do them as much as we can, but a lot of this, have you outsourced, a lot of some of those future problems can come up in their answers, right? What was wrong? Why didn't you like it? They were too small. I didn't have enough of them. It was too peaks and valleys, which, in our business, people fire us in June and go to Abstract, right, in August or whatever, our competitor, and then they fire Abstract next June and come back. Our programs are a little different, but there are peaks and valleys. Some months are better. If you stay with us a year, there's a nice average. You get appointments all year long. But if you get upset and just go to another company, well, now what you've done is you've stopped all our background work, and you're going to them more of a peak time, right? If you get through June and July with us and with very low appointments, they're hard months. You can't say that though, because then everyone would stop, right? But they're hard months, and then go to them August, September, October, or the fall.
Right.
Well, then they're fabulous, until next June, and they forget they're fabulous, just like they forgot we were fabulous in August, and they come back. So. So that's another thing you can listen for is peaks and valleys, because then as you're doing your 2-week account checks, you can talk them through that more. We can say anything you say up front sounds better than an excuse at the back end, right? So if it's a bad month and we say it's peaks and valleys, they might hear it, but if we say up front, maybe not at this juncture, but as we get started, we can look back to this and say they had peaks and valleys before, or the appointments were consistent. We can say later, as we're doing a kickoff or whatever, and the first weeks are always harder, and in our industry, there's peaks and valleys. You can have 4 appointments one week and none the next 2, and that's just how it goes. So over time, we have a nice, a nice consistent number of appointments, but week to week or month to month, it can definitely go up or down. And that's because they don't remember 2 months ago they told us that, and so on our first account check, we can mention it because it's right here on the paper, right? So all of these questions help us endear us to them as we go. I never asked the how many in-person appointments would you or your sales rep like to go on in a week in a perfect world. That's another thing that Damon, I don't know, and I think Angela did better with this, and again, I do really well, okay, in sales, but I don't know everything, and Angela did things a little differently than me. She only wanted big accounts. Her view was that if they buy 8 hours a week from us starting out, that their return on investment will be faster, right? So if we do 4 hours a week for 6 months, they'll get the same amount of appointments as 8 hours a week in 3, but the difference is they'll close one faster and be happier with us. So she always wanted our minimums to be higher. Me, when I have people without hours, I'm like, 3 hours a week, you need 10 hours a month? What do you need? I become the beer booth salesman, you know what I mean? Like, so it's different, she had the luxury of knowing she was getting a salary no matter what, she was getting based no matter what. For me, again, I have this onus of pressure, right? And so at the Promotions East show, a lot of the customers were smaller. I went in 4 hours a week because, again, I've got, all this going on. You'll know that in janitorial, I'm not going less than 6 hours a week right now, because I do believe that there is some merit to, what I tell them is that, hey, listen, what we're trying to find is the needle in the haystack, right? Now, along the way, we're also going to introduce you to companies that need you down the road or whatever. What you want us to find is a person unhappy right now. So if I spend 4 hours a week picking up pieces of hay, I'll get through some hay. I might find the needle. Give me 8 hours a week, I get through more hay. The needle's in there somewhere. The chances are we could pick up one piece of hay and find it. Or we have to work through the whole thing to find it. So, the more hours you can give up front, the better. It's I'm using that hay analogy a lot since I've enveloped a little bit of Angela's thinking with this. I raised my minimum in janitorial to 6 because I think that if we can get them to close one faster, they'll stay with us longer. Because I found out at the end, and again, I'm not really throwing under the bus, it's a study to me, right? Angela wasn't doing anything. She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't showing up for account check. She wasn't talking to her clients. I don't know why they all didn't quit. But, because wasn't Team MJ hers and one still like these big ones? But I think the reason is, and they're big, they're like 15 hours a week, is because they close enough that they love us. They don't need a sales rep all the time. If it's 3 hours a week and they've gone 3 weeks or a month and it's only 12 appointments, well, the other company's getting 12 in 1 week. So we can easily go 3 hours a week for someone and not get him any for a month. Well, they hate us, right? And they're the ones who are living and breathing and trying to make a business on our appointments. That's why we offered them a small one to begin with. So it becomes a disaster, right? They hate us. We didn't find the needle because we only got through this much hay. And so, so I do like the bigger ones. But again, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about how to go in. But, where was I? On how many in-person appointments would you like? I think Angela asked this more. Because what I say is if they say I need 3 a week, I think she'd say you need 15 hours. I'm always scared to let them know it's taking 5 hours to get one. I'm scared about that. She had no problem saying it.
If you don't mind me asking, why are you kind of leery or worried about letting them know that 5 hours?
Because to me, we $70. That's $350 an appointment. There are services out there that'll charge you $100 an appointment, or of course offshore. So it always makes me, the stats, when I get in the stats, make me a little nervous. I really believe we're good at this. So they should know their own area. You know what I mean? I really believe that if we put us up against any other company, I don't know how some of those companies sell appointments for $100. I don't know how they do it. Right? We're at 0.20, right, is 1 every 5 hours. There's lots of accounts that are 0.10, that's 10. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
but if you ask that question and they say, I'm looking for 3 hours a week, then you can, then I would say, you're looking at 10 to 15 hours a week in this climate, in this post-corona. You know what I mean? So maybe I shouldn't ask them more. So, if you do ask them, how many appointments are you looking for a week? Then you could do the math backwards at the end and say, okay, our minimum 6, when we're getting to the price point, I should do this more, to say it out loud. But, if you're looking for 3 appointments a week, you really need to be in that 12 to 15 hour a week range. So, it might not be a bad question to ask. I usually skip, these last ones at the bottom, I just usually kind of skip them, but do you have a list? That usually comes out in the inactive question. And if we ask if they have a list, I feel like they don't listen when we say we buy one
Right.
for them. I think they think that, it's gonna be an extra purchase. So I often skip that. Do you currently do email campaigns? If up at the top, they listed a bunch of stuff, like if he's already said, we don't do anything, everything's up to the blah, 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 I'm the only sales rep, I don't go back and ask if you're doing trade shows or emails. It's just other 2 things they have to say, no, we're not
No,
doing,
yeah.
it just makes them feel stupid. So that's, again, kind of a gut question. When you ask how are you getting people through the door, if they say things like, we're doing email campaigns or search engine optimization or some of that, then you already know it. So when we're in the pitch, we can talk about the fact that we're gonna supply you more emails, right, as a big value add. So in large part, I skip that. Trade shows, I've never met a janitorial company that exhibits at them. They should.
Right.
There are local manufacturing shows for manufacturers in your area. There are education shows to get into schools, superintendents. There'll be books and this, and I'd be the janitorial store, right? But they never do. So I very rarely ask, I never ask that with janitorial. Now, at the bottom, goal of campaign, I usually, with janitorial, it's usually in-person appointments. They have to get in your building. So I might not ask that, I just circle it because I know it. I'm not offering phone or Zoom routinely anymore. So I believe in what you put out in the universe manifests, okay? So I'm running into so many people, especially in the Northeast, that says, how can you do what you do? Nobody's working in buildings anymore. Well, sure they are.
Right.
We do this every day.
You
How do
see
you
the
reach
traffic?
How do you reach people?
Where are they going?
Well, you can't say that because Chicago's kind of dead. So it's interesting because some of these places that were super closed during the crisis are still living in somewhat fear. You know what I mean? Like the Northeast and Chicago, they are, and they haven't insisted people come back to work like the rest of the country, like the Midwest and the South. So it might say 100, like for vending, it might say 100, 250 people, but they only have 50 people any day because they rotate or something, right? That's why we have to ask. So, but for janitorial, I don't like saying, do you want phone? Because it feeds into them thinking we're all going to go under and it's the end of the world, I would say, I assume you want, or I would just circle it and not even cover it. I would just say, in my brain, I'm thinking, they're janitorial.
Right.
You have to get them in the building, so.
Well, with the kickoff meeting, when they say yes, you ask that question then too.
Which question?
The in-person appointment, what day a week do you
Oh,
do
yeah.
appointments?
Right. And again, they have to get in to see the building,
Correct.
right?
They can't give a quote over the phone.
Right. Or even say, if they're under contract, saying, oh, I see your contract doesn't handle the baseboards, I'll make sure that, those look better. I can put that in our quote. And then they go, well, they're supposed to do baseboards. That's how I'd be selling janitorial. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'd be like, well, is that important to you? Because I can include that in our quote. I don't think it's getting done. Well, it's supposed to get done. I'd be, let me get in a building. You know what I mean? And, so, and that's how they should be, right? Everyone's under contract. So, but that is when we bring some of that up too. So, but very in large part, this is going to be in-person appointments. And if they try to go down that path of, are you finding that people aren't in the office? Say, no, we have no problem reaching people. What about cell phones? Well, if people are working, if the executives are working from home, and in large part, they have phones forwarded. You know, they have this impression that you need their cell number. Every 1980 or something, every phone you own can be forwarded. You know, like we're not calling that many cell phones.
Right.
It just forwards to their home line, or you take your Ring Central phone home.
Right, I've been using my Ring Central
course.
home all the time.
Right. I mean, you know, you literally take your phone anywhere and plug
Like
it into a
yesterday
tower.
when the Adam guy called, I said, well, let me hang up here and I'll walk out and see what Sarah's doing. Cause he's like, she won't answer.
Okay, I'm gonna end this as sales one because I just don't know how long